Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. Project Poirot rolls on with one of my all-time favorite Agatha Christie books, Cards on the Table, which features, of course, Hercule Poirot. And guys, I love this book. I can't even wait to tell you about it because I just really, really love this book. I really enjoyed rereading it and remembering how great it is. And I think I appreciate it even more because it's sort of like I'm reading it in context and in order, and it's even better than I remembered. So let's get into this. So first, if you've never seen a Project Poirot video from me before, don't worry. No spoilers. I will take the summary up through roundabouts when we find the body, maybe a little bit past, and, Hercule Poirot is going to solve it, but come on. It's a mystery. You knew that going into it. That's not a spoiler. So Cards on the Table takes place, I believe, in 1936 or 1937, and the opening scene is with Hercule Poirot at a kind of auction or just sort of an event at a gallery where there's a display of snuff boxes from various collections, and he runs into this sort of over-the-top character named Mr. Shaitana. Now, Mr. Shaitana is described many, many times as being Mephistophelian, which is basically like Mephistopheles, the devil, basically. He has he cultivates a very devilish air. He's described as being what we'd probably call today kind of a metrosexual, he's very groomed. He has very much an affect. And he and Poirot are kind of chit-chatting, and Mr. Shaitana has lent some of the snuff boxes to the viewing, whatever it's called, and he and Poirot sort of get on to talking about collections, and essentially what Mr. Shaitana says is that he doesn't just collect things, he also likes to collect people, and one of the types of people he likes to collect are people who he thinks are basically people who got away with murdering someone. And he brings this up because, Poirot is obviously, a great detective, and Shaitana sort of proposes hey, I will have a dinner party for you so you can meet my collection. So Poirot is sort of not weirded out by this conversation, but he's like, dude, you need to be careful. If you think these people are murderers, you don't know what might happen. But he sort of feels a professional responsibility basically to go to this dinner and make sure that everything goes okay. And so he shows up, and there are including himself, there are 4 people who are associated with detecting, and there are 4 people who he presumes Shaitana thinks murdered someone. So for the detective side, there's Poirot, there's Superintendent Battle, who we met in the Seven Dials mystery. I really like him. He's one of my favorite Agatha Christie cops. There's Colonel Race, who basically we're made to understand is in something like the CIA or Secret Service type thing. And then there's Mrs. Ariadne Oliver, who is a mystery writer. And it is sort of known that Ariadne Oliver is often thought to be sort of Agatha Christie's Agatha Christie, but fictionalized for one of her books. And then on the side of potential murderers, we have Major Despard, who is just recently back from abroad. He is a major, but he also, I think, just generally is sort of an adventurer. We have Anne Meredith, who is just sort of kind of a quiet companion, basically. She's, I think, from genteel stock, but she's poor. So she's basically a companion. We have Mrs. Lorimer, who is an older society lady, and she fucking loves bridge. That's what she does all day. She's awesome at it. She loves bridge. And then we also finally have Dr. Roberts, who is sort of doctor to the rich. He's on Harley Street and all his patients are well off, so he's also therefore pretty well off. So they go down to dinner, and Shaitana basically is making all these sort of hey, people can murder people lots of different ways, right? You could do this or you could do that. And is basically kind of trying to bait all of the people who he thinks murdered someone, which is so dumb. But anyway, it's kind of funny when you read it. And after that, they all sort of adjourn and they go into 2 separate rooms to play bridge, which, Miss Lorimer is jazzed about. But anyway, so the sleuths are all playing in one room, and then the potential murderers are in the other room with Mr. Shaitana. And they're playing. you know, the sleuths wrap up, they want to go home, they go in to say goodbye to Mr. Shaitana, and he's dead. So pretty much no one came in and out of the room, so that means that we know it had to be one of these 4 people. And basically, Poirot spends the rest of the novel, like, digging into their psychology, digging into their background, figuring out what murder they did originally, and if that murder can tell him anything about whether or not they committed this murder. And like I said at the beginning, I just can't hold it in. I loved this book. It was just so good. I forgot how much I liked this book, basically. I have it on audio, and I also have it as an ebook, but I was listening to it again. I was like, yeah, I've listened to this audiobook like 7 or 8 times. Like, I really enjoy this book. And I just had sort of forgotten about it. So I think that this has to be one of the best books she ever wrote, because just reasons. There's so many reasons. But I think, again, I've said this over and over again in the last few weeks, but Agatha Christie does her best work when she's focused on characters and fleshing them out and making them do interesting things with each other. And that is what this book is. She isn't working with a large cast. It's actually like a pretty focused number of people that we're dealing with, and she gets to really dig into their backstories and really dig into like why they're doing what they're doing, and which one of them like committed this murder versus which ones of them potentially also committed another murder and why they might have done that. It's just like a really, really good book, and it's one, like, yeah, we'll get to my ratings, but like one of the number one ones that I would recommend to someone who'd never tried an Agatha Christie book before. In terms of our overall project, this is definitely a case of what you see isn't always the truth, because none of these people really, like, if you just met them at a party, you wouldn't necessarily think of them as murderers, but the whole book is basically deconstructing and explaining why they might be murderers, and therefore, again, reinforcing to the reader that just because somebody doesn't seem like they're a murderer doesn't mean that they aren't one. Ariadne Oliver is probably worthy of a little bit of discussion just because she is so kind of like known as being Agatha Christie's stand-in, and she certainly does have like some pretty clear, you know, correlations with Agatha Christie. But like I said before, I actually don't really think that that is the true Agatha Christie stand-in in terms of like personality. I think that that is what I have termed the Mary Debenham type, and in this book, that person is pretty much somebody who I haven't mentioned yet named Rhoda Dawes. Rhoda Dawes is a friend of Anne Meredith's, and they live together, but Rhoda is the one with the money, so she's footing all the bills, and she's very like plucky and kind of like inquisitive and take charge, and I think that that is the type that Agatha Christie is actually more closely relating to in these books because she writes that person so often. But that being said, Ariadne Oliver definitely has a lot of sort of like superficial traits in common with Agatha Christie, like she loves apples, she doesn't, like, she writes because she makes money from it, like she makes it really clear, like, I'm not in this for high art, I'm in this for money, just a variety of things. But Ariadne Oliver also is a continuation of a type that we have seen quite a bit in Agatha Christie novels, and that is the writer. We've actually had an allusion to like mystery novels for the last 3 books straight. So that's clearly a theme that Agatha Christie was interested in. There was the mystery writer in Death in the Clouds. I guess we didn't have one in ABC Murders, but in Murder in Mesopotamia, there's sort of an allusion to, oh, I should write into this author and let them know how they messed up this particular part of a mystery. And actually, I'm pretty sure the mystery Agatha Christie is alluding to is one that Ngao, I think that's how you say, Ngao Marsh had written about a nursing home. There's a lot of kind of like a meta-ness happening in Agatha Christie novels over the last few. And then we come to Mr. Shaitana. So he's an interesting character to kind of contend with because I do think you're meant to see him as gay, and that being a part of why particularly men, like English men, do not like him. It's not overt. I mean, the word queer in this time and place had a lot of different potential sort of connotations to it, one of which being somebody was homosexual or someone was gay. And I think that that is where we're ultimately meant to go, because you get the sense that Shaitana kind of enjoys victimizing women, and it reads to me anyway as if part of the reason that he is gay is because he's a misogynist. Like, I don't know. None of this is overt, so this is all just me sort of like speculating, and I did a little research to see that like there are definitely other people who agree with me, but I don't think that that's like necessarily completely obvious just by reading it. The other reason is just because he's described as being very much, like I said, sort of a metrosexual, but very like dandyish. And then there's a lot, he also brings up a lot of xenophobia, a lot of overt like slurs against people from kind of like Eastern or Southern Europe. Like they're always calling him, I think, a dago, which that to me doesn't mean anything, but I take it to mean it's basically a racial slur. Yeah, he's an interesting character, and he brings out a lot of sort of like moral themes of the time, because yeah, it's just very clear like where they are, where they kind of stand on foreigners, where they stand on men who do not conform to traditional or like stereotypical British gender roles for men. And he's kind of an interesting character, and considering he's the one who was killed, you don't like, there's not a huge motive to kill him. Like, it's pretty obvious why they're going to kill him. So he plays a very heavy part in the very beginning part of the book, but then he sort of disappears. I feel like I should have more interesting things to say about this book, but I just can't help it. I'm pretty much just fangirling out about it at this point. I really enjoyed this. In terms of like my ranking, I am going to go ahead and say I like this better than The Mysterious Affair at Styles, which I'm a little surprised. Guys, like, we're only 15-ish books into this, and I've already found 3 that I like better than the book I would have told you was my favorite Agatha Christie book ever. But this is one of them. I give this a full 5 out of 5 stars, 7 out of 7 unicorns. Like, I love this book. I really enjoy it, and I would recommend it to people. Oh, and I would particularly recommend this as an audiobook. Like I said, I've listened to it several times, but I think it works really well as an audiobook, and it's just a delight. So if you're looking for something for a road trip or whatever, definitely think that this is one I would recommend. So I think that will do it. If you've read this book, please let me know what you think, even if you didn't like it as much as I did, which I don't understand, but you know what? Different strokes for different folks. Not every book can work for every reader. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all of that information listed in the description box. And I think that will do it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!